ba, Julian. It's a hungry world. Peacemaker season 2 review. Yeah. The season ended like. I'm trying to get the sunlight out of my face. The season ended like 3 weeks ago. Where? Bro, there's like a single sunbeam coming through and hitting my face. Are we good? Are we good? We're good. Okay. Peacemaker season 2 review. It ended like 3 weeks ago. About a week ago, I sat down and recorded about half of this video before then realizing that I didn't actually hit the record button because I was too busy setting up an intro bit where I walk up to the camera and sing the Peacemaker season 2 theme song. So I then put it off for another week. But these are my thoughts on Peacemaker season 2, which, if you haven't seen it yet, but you've heard the internet discourse, you may have heard, oh, it sucks. Oh, it's bad. Oh, it ended terrible. James Gunn, the gun misfired. I'm here to set the record straight. He only misfired on the last episode. And even then, some of the last episode is still good. In my opinion. Well, it's a little more complicated than that. But we'll go into it. Week to week, watching this show was some of the most fun I've had. Like, watching a week-to-week show. Like, season 2 is not perfect, but it is very, very good, and at certain points, excels beyond the original, the first season. It's a classic case of higher highs, lower lows, in my opinion. So let's talk about it. It's just like, I'm talking about the experience of watching it because I feel like that is an important context. Since season 1 has came out, a lot of things have happened in my life. My friends have all gotten into Peacemaker, and when I was watching the first season, it was just me and Kirk watching it. And since then, all of my friends have gotten into it. A lot of things have happened in my life that I don't need to go into. But simply put, it was very, very nice to be able to enjoy this show and enjoy it with basically all of my friends that were watching it week to week and then, like, messaging about it. Like, we had our little group chat. We had our little server thread on Discord to talk about Peacemaker, and it was great. It was so fun waiting for each episode. Getting that awesome intro. I'm a big season 2 intro enjoyer. From episode 1, like a lot of people say it took them a while to get it. From episode 1, I was like, I watched it the first time and I was like, I gotta replay that. Hold on. And I replayed it. It's just, I love Foxy Shazam is peak. It's peak. And I don't care that the last episode had a whole ass concert sequence with Foxy Shazam. It's peak. It's peak. But we'll talk about the spoilers. There will have to be a spoiler section. But for now, we'll just say that, like, the season as a whole, it's just nice to see these characters again. It's just nice to see them doing stuff. It's just nice to see John Cena playing this so unexpectedly interesting character of Peacemaker that you would not have expected to be this interesting from the Suicide Squad. And Vigilante is funny as ever. Harcourt gets some real emotional work this season. Economos, Adebayo. It's just great to see the whole crew. And when they're all together doing Peacemaker stuff, the season is great. When they're really exploring the emotional worlds of those 5 characters, the season is great. The weak points that have been much maligned on the internet mostly come from everything related to Argus. That being the key. There's a main subplot that, honestly, I call it a subplot. It's kind of a B plot. It feels like a B. It should be a B plot, but it feels like an A plot with the amount of screen time it gets, which is minor spoilers for things literally talked about in the trailers. Rick Flag Sr., the father of Rick Flag that Peacemaker killed, who was in Creature Commandos and Superman, so he's kind of this connective tissue for the James Gunn's DC universe right now. he is now running Argus, and basically he wants revenge on Peacemaker, and he tries to frame it as like something that needs to be done for the good of the country, but it's clear that his personal biases are getting the best of him, which that conflict is interesting. But what it leads to, which is a whole like chunk of these 8 episodes that are just dedicated to Argus shenanigans and Argus setup stuff that is just not that interesting. Somehow, despite dedicating way too much time to Argus, most of the Argus team members, Flurry, played by Tim Meadows, Sasha Bordeaux, Judo Master comes back, the fucking Eagle Hunter guy that's in 2 episodes, none of them get fleshed out enough to feel like they're not just kind of like sucking up screen time that could be going to our main cast. And that really is apparent in episode 8, where basically, I'm like, how do I say this without spoiling? Basically, episode 7 is the big, episode 6 and 7 are the big sort of climax of Peacemaker's arc for the season. And Peacemaker's arc involves going to an alternate dimension that he thinks is like the perfect world where he's finally the superhero he's always wanted to be, but obviously, it's not. There's something wrong about it. And that storyline has its full climax and pretty much resolution in the 7th episode, which then means the 8th episode, the final episode, is a whole bunch of Argus setup shit for plot lines that were not very well established early on and feel like set up for future DC projects, and we don't even know what the future DC projects are. It'd be disingenuous to say the episode is all set up. We do get some really good, we get a really good elaboration on a certain backstory event that happens between Peacemaker and Harcourt between the 2 seasons, and we get, a real like a satisfying emotional resolution to the 11th Street gang, the main group's arc of bonding. But that's probably, so the last episode's 50 something minutes, and that probably takes, I think that takes up maybe 30 of those minutes, 25, I don't know. Not enough compared to the amount of Argus shenanigans that go on. And enough about Argus, enough about the bad part of the season, which isn't even all bad, but it sticks out like a sore thumb because the stuff that is happening with Peacemaker and the alternate dimension is so strong, so interesting. Basically, he stumbles upon it through his dad's quantum unfolding chamber, and I'm trying to figure out if you want to go into spoilers already, but basically, so he travels there, and he spends all of episode 3 there, and that is a great episode. Then he comes back, episodes 4 and 5. This is where this Eagle Hunter character I mentioned came up. Funny bit. He's this guy hunting that Argus gets to hunt eagly. Funny bit, but oh my god, so unnecessary. Really, this entire season, the crux of my issue with it personally is that it does feel like it could have been truncated into a movie focused almost entirely on Peacemaker's journey in this alternate universe. And because that part of the season is small enough screen time. If you cut out every Argus scene, or at least if you cut out every Argus scene, or at least most of the Argus scenes, you could have a 3-hour movie. If you cut out the whole Eagle guy subplot that pads out 1 episode's worth of story into 2, you could have You could even still have Rick Flag Sr. and that conflict, because I feel like that conflict, the big confrontation between Peacemaker and Rick Flag Sr. happens in episode 4. The confrontation where he's you killed my son, blah, 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 and then everything after that, Argus-wise, is just him hunting Peacemaker and doing various other things where it's really unclear what his motivations are for a lot of the stuff. It's just like, how has Rick Flag Sr. been in Creature Commandos, featured prominently as a lead in Creature Commandos, then also been in Superman, then now been like basically the main antagonist of season 2 of Peacemaker, and yet his motivations are so damn unclear, and his character is feels so like underdeveloped. How does that happen? Especially when James Gunn is normally great at doing a lot with a little when it comes to developing characters. I don't like. It almost feels like when two different Marvel projects use a character and they write the character very differently because it's two different writers writing him, but it's not. It's James Gunn writing him in all 3 projects. So why does he... What? I don't understand. Rick Flag Sr. angers me! And that's why we're going to talk about the alternate dimension, because the alternate dimension stuff is so good. But it's also really hard to talk about without spoiling. So, spoiler alert for the big twist of the alternate dimension, which you might probably know already. It's a Nazi world. You could probably guess that. Many people did guess that. I don't have an issue with the twist being easy to predict. I don't care if a twist is easy to predict as long as it's handled well, and this one is handled well. Now, the fact that it takes 6 of the 8 episodes to get to the reveal of that twist is kind of a problem, but again, that doesn't have anything to do with the pacing of the Earth X stuff, the Nazi world stuff. That stuff is perfectly paced. He spends 1 episode there meeting Alt Universe Harcourt and kind of like getting attached to that world. He spends his friends spend 1 episode coming there to rescue him after he decides to escape there forever. And then they spend 1 episode there dealing with the ramifications of the Nazi Earth thing and how that specifically affects Chris's psyche, Peacemaker's psyche, because it's not... I call it Earth X. It's not an Earth X storyline in the comic book sense. Earth X in comic books is Nazi world where all the Nazi versions of our heroes are there. There's Overman and Nazi Supergirl and like all these like the CW Arrowverse shows did Earth X. That's why I first was exposed to it, and that one is just like a cartoon. Like you've got like Ubar Thong, Reverse Flash, and a Nazi costume with like Nazi costume Green Arrow, and they're just like comically evil. This is very distinctly like not that, and in fact the opposite of that. We never see anyone wearing Nazi uniforms. The Earth X is seemingly very, very peaceful. That's why Peacemaker doesn't notice that something's wrong. We, the audience, are tuned in to notice it, A, because, there's no people of color around, but also because Peacemaker's dad in the main Earth was a Nazi. And so when you see that dad alive and happy, you're like, why though? And that's where we step. There's a second part to this twist that is brilliant, where Peacemaker's father, Augie Smith, the Blue Dragon is his superhero name in this universe, is actually a better person than he was on our Earth. He's not... They don't, like... This is interesting where I feel like the limited amount of screen time we get of Earth X helps this plot point, where we don't get a chance as the audience to actually, on good faith, analyze whether Augie Smith is not a Nazi or a good person. He gets offended when Harcourt calls him a Nazi. He expresses that he doesn't agree with the politics of this world, but doesn't have the power to change them. But it is kind of like, okay, dude, you're a superhero, though. Like, it really, like, you might have, from what we've been shown, you might have the power to change more than you think. Like, there's this gray area of, like, is he a good person or not? But what's brilliant is that it doesn't matter in the context of the character arc that Peacemaker has in this season. It doesn't matter. What matters is that Peacemaker sees that his father in this dimension is at the very least a better man. Maybe he's not a good man, but he's undeniably a better, kinder man than he was in Peacemaker's home dimension, in our world. And so, and then for Peacemaker to see that, and then have Augie immediately die right afterwards, and then get attacked by his brother who he killed in our world but is still alive in this world, and his brother's like trying to, oh my god, the whole scene where his brother's on top of him punching him, same way that Rick Flag Sr. punched him earlier, same way Rick Flag Jr. was on top of him when he killed him, and then his friends just like tearing into his brother, and him letting out that fucking scream that like he relives his childhood trauma and lets out this like wounded boy scream, and is like, stop. John Cena, John they should submit John Cena for Emmy nod consideration for that episode specifically. I don't really think he'll get a nom, but for that episode, but he I'd be happy if he did get a nom, because it's award worthy acting from him, and that whole storyline takes place so perfectly over like episodes 3, 6, 7, and then the introduction to it in like episodes 1, 2 is like a perfect fucking, and then the emotional resolution in 8 where the group meets up and reconnects would be a perfect movie. Be a perfect Peacemaker movie. Unfortunately, there is a whole another half of the season worth of Argus stuff or Peacemaker Harcourt romance stuff that is compelling, but I also think James Gunn maybe overestimates a little bit how much we care about the love story between Peacemaker and Harcourt. Like, I feel like the group dynamics, the importance of the group of friends that Peacemaker now has as being his anchor, his rock, is understated a little bit, because there's so much focus on his romance with Harcourt and his, like, him asking her the whole season, like, did the boat mean anything? And even at the end, he is like, the final note of the emotional resolution is him finally getting her to admit that the boat meant something. And we also see the boat scene in episode 8, which is a great choice. But it does kind of like push to the side a little bit the impact that like Vigilante's friendship has on him, that Adebayo's friendship has on him, like the way the whole group strengthens each other. That is shown. It's there. Adebayo's friendship with him is touched upon, but it could have been more touched upon. The whole group dynamic, we don't get to see the group together enough doing fun things. We get to see them individually being funny or having good emotional character beats, but I wish we got to see them more as a team. I hope we do get to see them more as a team. We're just in full spoiler territory, like, fuck it, whatever. They found a spy agency in the last episode called Checkmate. A satisfying little closer moment, but again, kind of underdeveloped and put to a montage instead of, like, we maybe could have used a scene or two. Like, it starts when Sasha Bordeaux defects from Argus, and then she's like, I'll join your little team, and we're going to make a spy agency. And Adebayo's been trying to make a spy agency all season, but it's just like, we needed a little bit more. We needed more scenes of Adebayo developing this spy agency idea. We needed a scene of Sasha Bordeaux actually confronting Rick Flag Sr. about why he's doing what he's doing in the last episode, so that he gets a chance to explain his motivations a bit more. Because even if he explained his motivations disingenuously, like he does when other people question him on the Peacemaker stuff throughout the season, that would still provide us some crumb of context as to why he's suddenly like, metahuman super prison on another planet. Like, is he just doing Lex's bidding so he can trap Peacemaker there? Does he like genuinely believe in this idea? It's really unclear. And it's kind of ridiculous how much screen time he gets as a character for it to be this unclear. Like, if it's gonna be this unclear, you might as well have like focused more on, like, I really like how Langston Fleury seems like this asshole, but then is proven to be an asshole, but an asshole who like cares about other people, cares about the well-being of other people, even if he kind of treats them like shit and ribs on them all the time. That works. But again, he just joins them at checkmate in the montage, and it's like, I, we a scene of Sasha Bordeaux confronting Rick Flag Sr. and them having an argument, and this causing Flurry and her and Judo Master to all leave Argus would have done so much to fix this a little bit. Really, a lot of these things, a lot of these issues could have been fixed with, this feels very uncharacteristically rough drafty for James Gunn. The stuff in the Nazi Earth, the big important emotional beat scenes, with like everything to do with Peacemaker and Harcourt's like relationship, Adebayo's relationship with her ex, and then with Peacemaker, all the scenes where it is two characters together in a room talking about their emotions are really well done and really well written. And it almost makes me wonder what James Gunn could write if he wasn't limited by the genre of like needing to make superhero content, and especially with this season needing to have this tie into his larger DCU, sow these connective seeds, and then also have action, and then like he clearly wanted to write like a character drama basically with these characters, and he succeeds at that. The character drama is just buried within a bunch of other superfluous like bits that don't always work, or jokes that don't always work, bits that go on for too long, characters and plot lines that don't feel like they resolve in any meaningful way. Again, the whole thing with Rick Flag and Argus, it's just like, okay, this is just setup, I guess, because there's no resolution. They don't defeat the main villain of the season. They don't even like stop his plans or confront him in any meaningful way. And it's just like, I want to see what James Gunn could write. Like this you can feel that he wrote Creature Commandos, Superman, and this, and had to make all three have come out this year. And unfortunately, I think Peacemaker Season 2 is the one that got the rough draft feeling end of the stick, where like a lot of the stuff, and especially the I feel like he had a very clear vision for the Peacemaker goes to a alternate Earth where things seem perfect for him. His friends try to warn him that he shouldn't, but he's too depressed and lonely and struggling to deal with his own shit, so he decides to stay there. And then his friends come to rescue him, and he finds out it's a Nazi world. But then he has to grapple with losing his dad and his brother, who were better people / still alive in this world. And that through line is very, very clear. Everything else in the season feels like him rough drafting his way into having a complete 8-episode season of television. And doing it quickly, not giving it maybe the time that it needed, because he's got all these other projects that he's got to set up. And it's just unfortunate because the first season is a pure passion project. And I'm like, this season at its height, that 7th episode is my favorite episode of the show. It has the best acting. It has the tightest pace. I immediately rewatched it after finishing it. I was like, it's only like 32 minutes, but it is a packed 32 minutes of really, really, of like nothing but good scenes. There's like one Argus scene in the middle that I just checked my phone during. And everything else is peak. But it's just like the first season was just this wonderful surprise of just pure, like probably the best thing James Gunn has ever done in terms of just like pure passion project, unbridled work. And so for the second season of that same show to fall victim to James Gunn's now need to kind of like build up this whole universe and like write this whole universe of stuff is just really unfortunate. And that's why I think it left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths and a sour taste in my mouth. But man, coming out of episode 6, coming out of episode 7, oh, so good. So good. Julian, it's a hungry world. I was so into it each week, so excited to see what was going to happen next. And even though I kind of knew, I knew episode 8 was going to be a little disappointing, because I just got, I got the sense that Keith was not going to come back. That was the last we'd seen of that world. That's fine. I think leaving him alive to say, use him for a potential future project is interesting. What I want is for them to make, so I mentioned Adebayo that they made the spy agency Checkmate, and there's not going to be a Peacemaker season 3. What we need is a Checkmate show, a show of this new spy agency, and I want it to be kind of episodic. I don't want it to have a versus Argus overarching storyline tie-in thing. I want it to be like almost like an Agents of Shield, but for this DC universe. Because I think they could pull that off, and I think it would probably be better than Agents of Shield actually was. Because Agents of Shield kind of morphed into its own thing after a couple seasons. But I feel like a Checkmate show could be really cool. The problem is that James Gunn just doesn't have time to write it anymore. And maybe someone else could write it. I don't know. But I feel like that's where these characters would shine the best, is a more episodic show where we occasionally have multi-episodes arcs. Like, okay, Peacemaker's brother is coming back, and that's the arc for this, like, half season. Like a good old-fashioned 20-episode network TV, semi-episodic, semi-overarching storyline type show revolving around Peacemaker and friends working at Checkmate would be great. I would love that. James Gunn doesn't have time to make it, but I would love that. Unfortunately, the cliffhanger ending kind of like overcomplicates that. I mean, not really. You could make a Checkmate show first 3 episodes or Peacemaker being rescued from Planet Salvation, but man, apparently James Gunn didn't include that cliffhanger in his original draft, and then his co-CEO Peter Safran convinced him to. Bad move, Peter. That cliffhanger was not exciting. Maybe if there was another season of Peacemaker or a Checkmate show announced to be coming out next year, maybe that would be exciting. Maybe that would be an interesting cliffhanger. Ooh, how's he gonna get out of this? But as it stands, with things up in the air as to when these characters are gonna come back again, it's just like it just feels like a fuck you to Peacemaker's, to the emotional resolution of the group being united and doing this thing together. Because now they're going to have to go and rescue Peacemaker from another dimension that he's this time actually trapped in. And it's just like, I don't... If this was a mid-season finale, to a longer season of TV, it would also be compelling. It'd be like, okay, we're going to follow up and close out these Salvation Rick Flag. We're going to find out why Rick Flag Sr. is acting so differently all of a sudden. We're going to find out how is Peacemaker going to get back. Instead, all of that is just nebulously left out into the air to be it almost feels like you got to watch every future DC project to find out what the hell's going to happen to Peacemaker and how the hell any of that stuff is going to get resolved, which is really bad. When I'm describing it, it's really bad, but I swear the season is good. I had so much fun watching it. It just really didn't stick the landing with that last episode. It's still better than any of the Marvel shows, but it's definitely a step down from season 1, even if it has higher highs. But if you loved the first season, you will probably at least like this season. If you want to see more of these characters, it does offer that. So I would still recommend it. It's a very mixed bag, messy show, and I actually need to go. I might be late to my thing that I have at 2 p.m. Arrivederci!